whole desk is covered with calculators, but that's a different video. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Layer by Layer, the show about 3D printing and our place inside the industry. Today we're going to talk about McDonald's 3D printing parts. Can we replace Shapeways? And a spine splicing thing from hell. But before that, let's go ahead and pay the bills. Today's video is sponsored by tangledfilament.com. Tangled Filament is our attempt to drop the cost of 3D printer filament down to $10 per spool. We're doing it by making it more efficient and focusing on the things that matter, such as eliminating sources of cost and just scaling up the overall process without diluting ourselves and adding a whole bunch of extra work. So if you like some good handy filaments, PLA, you can get some over there at tangledfilament.com. You can have any color you want, so long as it's black, and you can have any material you want, so long as it's PLA. So check out tangledfilament.com. Yeah, we discontinued gray. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But first, the news. Medical device manufacturer Camber Spine has received FDA clearance for its 3D printed Spira A integrated technology. Part of the Spira A product platform is an anterior lumbar interbody fusion device that is an open matrix designed to facilitate packing with autogenous and allogenous graft material to facilitate fusion. It also boasts additional fixation options to secure the implant in the disk space. Excellent use for ChatGPT. Translating that. This was the news article, so I'm going to call out, if you're watching, you're the person who posted this press release as a news article, do the effort, go through ChatGPT, literally have it explain what it is. This is a spine splicing rig. If you guys want to Google the device, again, Spira A, it looks like a little metal part from hell. It's got 4 screws, and it's for fusing spines together. And it's using 3D printing because they're able to texture it so that it can stimulate bone growth and grow into the fixture better than like machine parts would. And of course, they're able to get really weird geometry, so they're able to put the screws in weird ways. So 3D printing is a great application here. It's a metal 3D printed part. And yeah, it's able to take advantage of all of the advantages of 3D printing, from really weird geometry to textured surface, so on and so forth. They say it'll be a first of their kind 3D printed anchors with a Spira surface. The Spira surface has been designed to increase potential for osteointegration and resist pullout. Osteointegration means bone growing into it. And pull out, of course, so it doesn't fall out. But yeah, nifty little thing over there. HP has entered into a collaboration with the United States Navy, Naval Sea Systems Command, NAVSEA, Technology Office to support the revitalization of the submarine industrial base. They will harness HP's multi-jet jetting technology for its bid to pioneer advanced manufacturing solutions. Working with its binder jetting partners, HP will explore new frontiers. Oh my goodness. I'm reading the article. It's very editorialized. It will allow for the use of new materials and designs for ship construction, which should help to shorten production timelines from months to mere days. Yeah, 3D printing can help the Navy a bunch. The Navy is an awesome place to do this because they have to be self-sustaining floating cities. 3D printing should be used all over the place. The military in general should use 3D printing. If you guys want us to do it, come call us. We'll put a bunch of printers in a shipping container for you and ship it out to wherever the heck you want them. We'll drop them out of a satellite. I don't care. But yeah, good. The Navy's using metal jetting printing or metal binder jetting printing to get this done. Good for them. That's good to see. Submarines need that stuff. 2 other pieces of news we're going to talk about. Slant 3D has released lunar regolith as part of our API. This is kind of old news, so I want to just kind of correct the record. This was published on the 23rd, and I appreciate you guys publishing it. Thank you so much for the news agency that did, but this was released a month ago, so it's slightly old news. But yeah, our 3D printing API that gives anybody access to our 3D print farms has moon dust inside of it. So you can print with lunar basalt simulant, which is pretty cool. Other piece of news, which is also old and out of date, is McDonald's. And McDonald's has started deploying 3D printed luminaires or light fixtures, or the hoods of lampshades, the hoods of lampshades. McDonald's has started using 3D printing through My Creative in Philips. It used to be called Not simplicity. Synchronicity. Anyhow, it's my creations now inside of Philips, and Philips is using FDM 3D printing to print lampshades. And Philips reached out to them or McDonald's reached out to Philips to print lampshades for stores in 100 different countries. The thing is that this was all announced by Philips and McDonald's a year and a half, 2 years ago. Yeah, up to 2 years ago, based on when YouTube videos were released. But there was an article about it this week that broke it down a little bit more. And it's really exciting. We've done lots of lamps here inside of our print farms. And lamps are a fantastic application of printing because, again, you can get something custom branded to your company. And these lamps work really well. They're very durable. They're not glass. You can produce them on demand so you don't have to ship them around. It's good stuff. In fact, this story was so interesting that we went ahead and did a full video about it. So like and subscribe if you want to see that video a little bit later on. It's in progress right now. So that's the news. So yeah, a lot of stuff coming along. A lot of companies starting to use 3D printing in very real ways. I mean, producing thousands of lampshades for McDonald's, that's a pretty big okay for it. And it's not experimental. These are going into real stores and that kind of thing. It's not like a test like when Nike says, oh, we're going to make 3D printed shoes. No, it's like for real. So yeah, that's great. And it's fun to see. Alrighty, going from news to Slant 3D updates. Can we replace Shapeways? We'll kind of follow that up with in the discussion topics. The answer is yes, but let's go to something else. Tangled testing. Tangled testing videos are going to start dropping at a fairly regular cadence. So we just formalized kind of the testing process, and we've knocked out a bunch of the tests, filmed a bunch of the tests, figured out the format of the videos, because quite frankly, the tests compiled together are very fast. So we had to figure out how do we make this a video. We will be publishing those videos, and we'll be getting in cadence of that. This tester is working and is stable. The first video will be about Tangled PLA itself, and then the follow-up video will be about carbon fiber. So again, like and subscribe if you want to see those videos in the future. To Tangled. You don't have to be over here. Even if you watch this channel, it's high likelihood that you will get recommended Tangled just because YouTube knows. Yeah. So yeah, Tangled testing is getting ramped up. API, there are a number of fairly large updates coming to the API pretty soon around multi-part printing. We are also updating the slicer again. The slicer is continually iterating because even though we've got 3 years of stuff that we've printed, it's almost impossible to create a universal set of slicing profiles. So we're trying to figure out how to intelligentify the thing based on the context of what the object is, like the size of the object, is it a batch, is it a single thing, that kind of stuff. So we're doing some interesting analysis in that way to improve the API, to improve print quality, because the giant challenge of the API is the fact that anybody can send us anything. And even though we have it centralized to just PLA, somebody sending us a sharp pyramid should have different print settings than if somebody sends us a dome. Because like the sharp pyramid might need cooling and the dome might not, and that kind of stuff. So the dynamics of the geometry of the part can affect print settings. That being said, there are for y'all who are using API, definitely make sure that you order test prints of your prints, because we have noticed that some folks are throwing in impossible prints. And the system is automated, so it prints it. And we have a team that stands by to reslice and check and manually slice stuff if necessary in API, but it's not sustainable and it's not scalable. So part of the point of the API is to give access to printers. It is not necessarily to be bulletproof and to print anything. So the developers will have to ensure that they're not throwing garbage in, because garbage could potentially come out. It is impossible. It is very nearly impossible to build a system that builds anything on demand perfectly. This is why we restricted API to literally just PLA for a while, because that's somewhat controllable without having weirdness. So like PETG, geometry of the part radically impacts how well like layer adhesion of PETG is. If it's a great big part, then you can run into splitting because it has too much time to cool in between layers and that kind of stuff. So that's why we restrict this. Although, as I say that out loud, the restriction of PETG, we could just restrict parts down to like a sub, like 4-inch or 6-inch size. not even full printer volume, but like a virtual size. Because if you go bigger than that, then you run into an issue where, the dynamics of the part of laying down layer by layer can jack with it. I'll bring that up in Scrum meeting tomorrow. Anyhow, Etsy plugin. Bunch of updates coming to the Etsy plugin. The guys were able to dig in for a couple days here the last few days. So you'll see some extra buttons, some extra details, some extra stats, some extra pings and that kind of thing coming through. The Etsy plugin that lets any Etsy store use our print farm to deliver their orders is continuing to evolve. Corduroy is a great product and getting a lot better. A lot of folks are international in using it because it's really cool because you effectively get to teleport your product from Europe to here or wherever you happen to be. If you're in South America, you can now deliver product inside the United States and not have to pay international shipping. Literally all you have to do is create an Etsy store, set us as the home base so that you have a shipping origin, and that's it. Upload a file and it will immediately quote that file, and then you can say, that looks good, I want to sell that. And that's how it goes through. All right, can we replace Shapeways? This has come up, and it came up in discussion, actually. 3D printing professor, what's up, man? Thank you for calling us out the other day in a video that you did on the Shapeways shutdown. Appreciate that. Although, I would prefer if we were not lumped in with PCBWay and Xometry, because they are contract manufacturers, and we do 3D printing exclusively. And quite frankly, we're easier to get a hold of. So I want to clarify that we are only a print farm. We do not have laser cutting or machining or whatever the other magic thing is. So yes, we are not a on-demand manufacturing spot, because that also makes it look like we're really expensive. We're not. We're trying to build a warehouse where the shelves make the product, to where a normal person or a company or a product designer can create a thing, put it on our platform, and have it made and shipped for the same cost as what it would sell on Amazon if you injection molded it somewhere. That's what we're going for. And that is what Shapeways was originally going for. And they had built an API and the marketplace way back when they did it. We have attempted the marketplace. Angled used to be a marketplace where designers could submit files. And the reason we did that is because FDM is a better way of doing it than what Shapeways ever did. Shapeways used SLS, and that's fine for high detail parts and high margin parts, like medical devices. But Shapeways was always a broken system because lead times were 3 weeks and parts were stupid expensive. So that's why their API and their marketplace never really worked, because they were never able to create true consumer product. They were very niche and very expensive. We went the opposite direction of how do we get scale so that parts are shipped in a couple days, and how do we get scale so that those parts are affordable. You can print a part for $2 from us and then pay the $3 of shipping for that part and go from there. So that's all, we're better than Shapeways. I can dance on a grave. Yes, I can. They're gone now. I'm not beleaguering a competitor. We were better than them. We're better than Shapeways because we actually are cost effective and fast. So you don't know that it's being printed and then shipped. You just think it's being shipped. The customer does. And we're trying to reduce that time. Right now, API is floating around about 4 days to get parts out because of backlogs inside of that, because there's a bunch of use, but we're trying to get it centralized back around and wrangled back up again to make sure that we're getting back down to like the sub 2 days. That's the golden moment. And estimated shipping is between 2 to 5 days on API, so we're doing fine, but we want it faster. And quite frankly, the restriction on that is everybody experimenting. So a lot of weird stuff coming through, which messes with workflow and sometimes needs reprints, because we want to make sure that we're sending out good parts. So every part is inspected. And if it goes wrong, we reprint it and send it if it's possible to do that. Garbage in, garbage out, because people also have to learn that a part, we had one part submitted. I was in the review meeting when we were talking about angle, and there's one part that had a 0.5 millimeter raised edge with a handle on it. So the whole big old fat ring was on the bed, but the handle was up 1/4 millimeter. We could print support underneath it, but it doesn't really work because it was literally just like enough to raise it up one layer, but not enough to have like a support underneath it that mattered. That one we re-sliced in order to make it well, and we kind of shoved it in the bed and made it flat. But the problem with that was that I told the guys, it's like, but the designer doesn't know that their model is jacked up now. So we got to contact the designer and say, hey, you need to modify this design. We resliced it by hand, basically, which is not sustainable long term, but it's what we got to do because people are starting to use the API, and we want to make sure folks are getting a good result. And we don't want to ship a blob in a box, even though sometimes that is necessary because we have to tell the designer, like, you can't do this. You can't print a 1 millimeter, 8-inch tall stick. That's just not feasible. So anyhow, those are things about the API as it branches off of Shapeways. Yes, right now I think we are the last freestanding 3D printing API where anybody can plug our API into their website or their 3D print on demand, whatever it happens to be, and actually get us and use us in a reasonable way where you can get parts on demand. So right now, yeah, if you compare to like PCBWay, well, it takes 3 weeks to get those parts if you want the cheap versions, 3 to 5 weeks, and Xometry is just expensive. So we're the only ones who are really going for scale and cost so that you can make a real consumer product. Because in a perfect world, what would happen is like a designer who's famous on Instagram would just start posting their designs to like their Shopify site. And then if a normal person who sees their Instagram video that goes viral wants the thing and doesn't want to print it, then they have an outlet to do it without having to run a print farm because they want to design cool stuff. They don't want to run a print farm. So yeah, we're way better than Shapeways. And we're the last ones who are an option outside of Shapeways. We only do FDM. We only do FDM. That means we do not do SLS, we do not do SLA, we do not do resin, we do not do powder. I know those are the same things, I'm making this clear. We do FDM, hot nozzle squirt down plastic. That's the only thing we do, that's the only thing we're gonna do. All right, I'm off my soapbox now. My audio is having a lot of trouble. Discussion topic for the day. Okay, ways of funding a startup. So this came up last week when we were talking about equity crowdfunding of us. And thank you so much, everybody who reached out. It was, thank you. Like really, a lot of folks reached out with options and help and that kind of thing. So I really appreciate that. And thank you all so much for that. But a lot of people reached out and discussions and comments were of a type to where I thought it was useful to add discussion in this podcast to talk about ways of funding a startup. Because it's not very well, there's lots of videos out there that talk about it. And quite frankly, I recommend subscribing to Y Combinator and one of the other startup accelerator. Y Combinator's the best. Y Combinator's the best. Y Combinator's the best. The problem with all these startup channels is that once they cover the topic, they cover another topic, and then their stuff gets buried. So you have to go looking for it again. So I can't just say this is the funding channel. It's not really one. Even like venture capital podcasts and that kind of thing, they start talking about other things downstream because they can't talk about funding every single show because that's boring for regular listeners. So they have to expand. But now new listeners can't find the information that they need when they're learning. So this one time we're going to talk about funding, and hopefully this can be the end all be all because I know everything. Not really, but saying that. In that context, this is not investment advice. I am not a financial advisor. I've started a couple companies before. I know a little bit about funding. Here we go. All right, ways of funding a startup. Friends, fools, and family, loans, venture capital. Those are the ways you can get it. Friends, fools, and family. I really dislike the fact that those three are lumped together. Friends are different from family, are different from fools. And if your family are fools or your friends are fools, why do you have those friends? And why are you so mean to your family? This is the thing. Friends, fools, and family and fools are the people who are willing to give you your first bit of money to get it done. The fool should be you. If you want to start a business, you need to figure out how to fund that business, which means that you need to start living on beans and toast for a couple months and saving up salary and that kind of thing. Finding ways of getting the money. Mow lawns on the weekend, put in some sweat, whatever it is. This is the stage where you have to manifest money. You have to go make it appear, get a second job, drive Uber, and all the Uber money only goes to the company or whatever it happens to be to pay for whatever it is. It also forces you to be smart. Whereas, do you really need that much money? Do you need $100,000 to start this? Yeah, the engineer, I got to pay him for a year. No, I'll bet you need to pay the engineer for like 4 weeks. So this is when it's so important to understand what you're doing. And this is where a lot of inventors run into trouble because inventors I heard that in my head, inventors. I'm not British. The inventor. Yes. So you have to be very scrappy. You have to know what you're doing and what the smallest thing you can possibly do to get this thing sold is. If you think you're going to sell belts, well, you better figure out how to sell a strap or how to sell a buckle, that kind of thing. This is also the stage where you need to find out if you have customers, which means you sell one, tell everybody it takes 4 weeks to make it. And then when they buy one from it, you go make it and then you ship it to them. That's what you do at this stage. You don't have 2-day shipping. You don't have fast turns around. You don't have the most premium product. You make something good. You see if somebody gets a hold of it. That is less about funding. Presuming you have to have funding. We can talk about avoiding funding in a different conversation. But if you have to have funding, friends, fools, and family, your rich uncle, you save up some money, family might invest, friends might invest if they think you are competent and good at what you're doing. But here's what I would say. Many entrepreneurs consider this a donation. It's not. It's an investment, which means that your family should fully understand that there's a 9 out of 10 chance that they're going to lose their money with you. Your friends should understand that. And you should try to scare them because they are biased to help you because they have a relationship with it. You should try to scare them. Otherwise, you're going to risk killing relationships because you lost their money. You have an exceptional probability of losing their money, regardless of how good your idea is. Let me make this really clear. You have a 9 out of 10 chance of failing, especially at this stage. Make sure your friends and your family know this because they're lumped in with fools. Okay. Now, if you're a genius and some rich guy sees you're a genius and thinks you are the best salesman or whatever it happens to be, and he gives you 10 grand to get started, that's a different deal. But friends and family, be careful. Debt. If you are a brand new company, you should not raise debt because, again, you're going to hang it around your neck forever. Interesting conversation about college tuition here, but it's in a similar vein because college tuition is an investment in yourself. But if you are starting a company, you should not raise debt. And if you do raise debt, because you're going to ignore me, it shouldn't be much. And you should know exactly where it's going to. Debt should be for things where you can do math about it. If you can say, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to get this back, and I know that when I buy it and stir in colorant, it's going to become more valuable, then you can raise debt on that. Like with us, with Tangled. When we started Tangled, after we bought an initial extruder for Tangled exclusively that we paid for with our own money, then we were able to go to the bank and say, okay, we want to get some more extrusion lines in here because we know we have this much demand. There are people on a waiting list. We have an email list this big. We want to buy another machine, but we don't want to use our cash for that. So we want to use debt for it because we know as soon as we crank out this filament that there's a whole pile of people sitting there to buy it. That's math. It's guaranteed. It is not, I'm sure this is going to sell 1 million units. That's not the same thing. Certainty is not pre-orders. You should have pre-orders if you want to raise debt. This is Walmart gave me a purchase order or a letter of intent that they will give us buy 10,000 pieces. That is something you can raise debt on. Because number one, it's something you can hand to the bank, so the bank will actually give you money. But from a fiscal standpoint and from a risk management standpoint, if you have a purchase order, you can fund that with debt and working capital or credit cards because that's reasonable. You know that you're going to sell the things for more than what you're going to spend on them. So raising debt for that is fine because you need cash from somewhere to buy the things initially. But again, this is not the same as I have a great idea and everybody's going to want that. That is not a time to raise debt. Everybody has a great idea and think they're going to make a bunch of money. You have a 9 out of 10 chance of failing. Where does 9 out of 10 come from? Every stat on the planet who has done small business research, every Y Combinator company, every startup, wherever it happens to be, and I work in manufacturing where we talk to 10 inventors a day. And I can tell you precisely how many of them have turned into large companies. 9 out of 10 chance of failing outright. So, investors, traditional venture capital. Traditional venture capital, there's a lot of stories around this. Current state of venture capital, you have to be a software company to do venture capital. Venture capitalists do not fund traditional other types of companies because they're deemed not scalable. Conversation for the different day. Tesla is a hardware company that still does not have the software that is the fundamental scalable part of their business. They're a really good manufacturer. And self-driving is not here yet. But everybody's betting on it. But for a long time, Tesla was just an electric car company. Anyhow, so hardware works fine if you're successful. But investors have not caught up to that idea. Venture capital requires a software component of it somewhere to raise from traditional venture capital firms because those guys need a 10 to 100x return. Good venture capitalists who are focusing on true venture capital, this is the Andreessen Horowitz, the Y Combinators, that kind of stuff, they are expecting to go through somewhere between 50 and 100 companies who will all break even, slow burn, make a little bit of money, and they're all going to be made up for because they're going to invest in Google or Airbnb, which will make $100 billion. So they're going to invest, so Andreessen Horowitz or whoever it is going to invest $10 billion across 100 companies in the expectation that one of them will come out and be $100 billion. So if you want to play in that game, you have to have not that market size, but you have to have that scalability and the vision going along with it. Oh man, traditional venture capital and how to present is a wide, big discussion topic. And again, go watch a podcast like Y Combinator. But traditional venture capital, vast majority of companies don't fall into unless you're a software company with an exceptional amount of growth and backstory. If you're really, really good, they'll find you. There are regular investors. Many local firms and that kind of stuff do safer type of investing. These are like an angel investment groups or kind of private equity kind of firms that are looking for like a 10 to 20% return on investment over like 3 years. These guys still peg themselves as venture capitalists. They are not. They don't play the same model. They don't play the long tail sort of situation. They are looking for outsized returns from investing in seed and seeing a company grow. These guys want to see numbers on the books. They want to see how many sales you have and how you're doing. Can they math out stuff better than you and give you money that a bank won't give you? These guys will give you money very early on because a bank generally won't give you money until after you've existed for 3 years. I wish this was more structured, and I'm sorry, guys. This should be a whole separate video that's like written. So I know I apologize. I'm going all over the place, but all these things interlink. These small investors will generally put in somewhere between $10,000 to $100,000 in a company, and they are looking to sell their shares at the Series A. That is their business model. So they expect to put in $100,000. You use that $100,000 to buy Facebook ads to grow. All the venture capitalists are cringing. You buy Facebook ads to grow, and then you do a Series A, and then the Series A venture capital firm buys out that seed investor. And the seed investor makes 20 or 50% because you went from a $5 million valuation to a $10 million valuation. They leave with their money. The new guys carry on and on from there. This has been a problem in venture capital for the last 10 years because there's been a lot of people selling tulip bulbs to the next guy. So Series A sold to Series B, which sold to Series C, and so on, to where venture capital all blew up 2 years ago, especially at seed rounds, because everybody was passing around valueless paper. So that all being said, those are the tiers. Venture capital, you have low-level angel investors who are kind of formalized and kind of small private equity kind of guys. True venture capitalists, where you have to be cream of crop to do that, and probably down in the valley and have connections to get in. The small venture capital firms, very often they'll talk to you because they only get this is the dirty little secret. Venture capital firms have to make deals. They have to. They have limited partners who are expecting returns, and they cannot sit on cash even if there's not good investments. So there's kind of an incentive to put money someplace, and they don't know where all the companies are. So they need companies to reach out to them. So those smaller private equity firms / angel funds are looking for people to pitch to them. They are actively hoping somebody answers their message board. So send them a message. They are not as walled garden and recommendation based as like Andreessen Horowitz or those big venture capital firms that everybody wants to apply to and get to, but most people can't get into because you only get there if somebody says, "Hey, you guys should go talk to this person." I'll be the warm intro. Those small firms, those local firms are generally fairly open to an idea. So if you made a widget that's cool and you know how to sell it into Walmart, or you've done a bunch of eBay before and that kind of stuff to where you can prove that you're a good bet, you have a higher probability of success than 1 out of 10, they're open to talking to you. You do not need a slide deck necessarily. You need a coherent plan. That can be a one-sheet page of paper that says who you are, the problem you're solving, how you're going to make money, and all the rest of it, very concisely planned out. It's not a business plan. It's not a 50-page business plan. Slide decks and 50-page business plans are contextual to the place where you're putting them. Again, conversation for another day. You can go into that all the way through. A deck is good, but many people don't know how to do slide decks well. So I would prefer, if I was an investor, I want a 1 to 2 page memo document explaining what your company does. And if I'm not interested from that and you can't communicate it in that, I can't talk to you. Okay, so those are the full tiers. Friends, fools, family, loans after you're an age company and no business model. You can use angels and rich people and private equity firms to get initial start. But if you believe in your idea, you should figure out a way of getting money. And most really great entrepreneurs just find a way. And I hate to kind of bottom it out like that, but you just find a way and then you stick with it. It's about surviving longer, not necessarily about having the most money. It's just about, can you work with what you've got? For us, my experience with Slant 3D, for everybody who, in the context of this story, Slant 3D has been bootstrapped historically. 2 years ago, we started raising a Series A, and it fell through, or it was a seed round. It fell through because of the whole startup blow up. When Silicon Valley Bank went under and everybody else was going under, and it was just a whole big bunch of chaos. And venture capital was like, we're not putting any more money in. We all got to survive for 4 years. Interest rates are going up. Our whole model broke. Because they're sitting on cash to invest in other people, and now that cash got expensive. Anyway, and it's inflating away. So we were at term sheet. And then the deal fell through like 2 weeks before signing. It was kind of brutal in a number of ways because we were much smaller then. More recently, like I said, we've been looking to redo Series A/seed round here with revamps and new stuff that we've done. The thing I am very proud about is that when that seed round fell through, we continued operating on cash flow for another year, continuing to bootstrap. The next year, we raised a little bit of debt in order to facilitate the development of like software and new hardware, next generation machines. Because again, we had a business model. We spun out in 2019. So by the time 2022, 23 came around, we'd been around for a while to where banks were like, oh, you've existed for a while. You've been profitable before. We will give you a loan because we know you can make the payments. We see the money going by. So we're not a pure startup where it's like, oh, 3 years from now, we're going to have a bajillion users paying us 50 cents. It wasn't that. We were an established, credible business. So we could raise debt. And the good thing about debt is that debt is generally cheaper than venture capital. If you are a fast-growing company, venture capital is very expensive because they take 10% of your company, which is then worth 10 times more next year. Whereas if you did a loan, they give you the loan and then you pay them back. If you're a 10x company, you can pay them back next year and only have paid 10% of that loan with no equity give up. So venture capital is stupidly expensive. For people who are thinking that thought, here's the thing. If your company is growing really big, after $1 million, $2 million is still a lot and you can share it around. And venture capitalist, if you pick them well, and you're allowed to pick, you don't have to take the first thing that comes by. If you pick them well, they both open up doors to subsequent funding and they can be great partners. So it's not about the money. There is math and analysis to do of like, is this a better use of money and equity, or is this a better use of money and equity if we're trying to save money? So you can do that calculation pretty easily. And many people will say, oh, venture capital is expensive and loans are cheap. And it's like, well, yeah, sort of, kind of, maybe. But loans don't give you additional resources, and loans don't give you someone else on your team who's incentivized to care about what you're doing. My bankers have no idea what I do and can offer very little advice about how to get more loans, except about how to get more loans. Whereas investors would say like, hey, I'm invested in this other company. You should talk to them. They could be a client or a partner. And oh, by the way, you're going to need some more money here in 2 years. So I'll connect you to this venture firm. We talked last year. They were looking for a company like you guys, that kind of thing. You're building network with investors, which is more valuable than the money very often. The dollar value of the money should be slightly less important than the vision of the company. Because if you're vision-based, you'll survive longer and can do more important things. But if you're only about the money, you'll turn into a bean counter, and you'll forego risk and be safe and grow steadily, but you won't grow big and you won't do big things. So venture keeps you incentivized that way too. Venture creates a lot of pressure. You have to grow with them because they got to do a payout here in a couple of years. So there's dynamics and politics with it all. But yeah, we did that round. We're looking at doing another round right now. So we have started out bootstrapped, tried to do VC, traditional VC. Well, no, it was like local firm VC. They pegged it as a venture capital firm. It was a fairly low investment. Large for most startups, but fairly small in the context of venture capital. It wasn't $10 million. And then bootstrapped a little bit more, raised a little bit of debt, and now we're looking to do venture capital again because, again, we're trying to build that network now. Slant 3D is in a position to where we've kind of inadvertently been in stealth for a long time, even though we have a gigantic, well, in the 3D printing space, we have a gigantic YouTube channel where we talk about everything that we're doing all the time, very transparently, like this. But we're not that well known, especially within the venture community or the technology community. So getting in the door with that is kind of the reason we're revisiting venture. And we know what our business model is. We have pretty good product market fit, and we want to scale. So I want to build like 5 factories next year. So 5 mega farms that have 3,000 machines in them each. The bank's not going to give us that much money, but our venture capitalists will, because they think in different ways. Remember, as you're going through about this, that the person giving you money is a customer, and you have to understand them. Bankers have different thoughts from venture capitalists, from private equity guys, from whoever it happens to be, from rich guys who want to give you money. All of them have different incentives and different goals. So that's a quick 20-minute, half-hour spiel about funding a startup. Hopefully it's useful to y'all in some sort of context. But like, there's no size fits all. There's no right way to do it. As an organization, you look at the context that you're in, and then you strategically, analytically, and risk-wise evaluate what the best one is for you. And that best one will be the best one for you. But it's not one to recommend to other people. Each company is like a person. Some people can play basketball, some people can't. Some people can while it away for 20 years, and some people can't. And both will end up being billion-dollar companies. And I might have taken that analogy a little bit too far, or that metaphor a little too far, but whatever. That's it, guys. Check out anything else. Do be around for Tangled. Make sure you go over, check out the Tangled Filament channel, and make sure you're subscribed to see testing of that, because we're going to get some very legitimate product testing of different filaments, not just ours, over there. And yeah, if you want to buy some black PLA, I recommend tangledfilament.com. We use it in our print farms. Works all right. With Tangled, last little thing, spoolless should be coming soon. We just got a machine in. We're starting to get that workflow built out. It might come sooner rather than later. So I'll just drop that at the end for all of you guys who stuck around this long, because that's surprising. Have a great day, everybody.